I'm Raj Kumar here in Brussels, and I'm joined by a special guest. We've got the Executive Director, you go by Executive Director or CEO?
Executive Director.
Executive Director of GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, Marc van Ameringen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And one of the big topics at European Development Days this year is engaging the private sector, I think is the term that they're using.
Yeah.
This is something I think is close to your heart and close to the work at GAIN, trying to get nutrition to the poorest, to the base of the pyramid. How are you doing it with the private sector? Give us an idea how this actually works. Why do you need to include the private sector in this?
Well, first of all, one of our biggest challenges dealing with hunger and malnutrition is that we're trying to reach so many people. You've got the latest report that just came out, 870 million people are hungry, and if you add those who are suffering from micronutrient deficiencies, you get close to 2 billion people in the world. So first of all, we've got a huge challenge. Secondly, most people don't buy their food from a government. They don't get their nutrition from the government. They get it in the marketplace. Either they're growing food or they're buying industrialized food. And so we need to start to think of, how do you engage markets more effectively? Public health can play a key role in delivering public goods, but they can't reach the large number of people that we need to reach on a sustained basis. So that means that you have to think of how do you crowd the market in? How do you use new partnership models so that you're using more of the private sector to deliver public goods? There's more of a cost sharing.
Right.
And that allows us to get more to scale, allows us to get more sustainability, allows us to get more of the know-how and investment into some of these new frameworks. So that's why I think we need today to start looking at markets. I think the private sector is part of that, but I think the real issue is how do you make markets work for the poor? That's, I think, what we need to focus on.
I remember being in a small, sort of middle of nowhere place in Mali, in the desert, on a road that was barely a road, and yet there was a little kid selling Coca-Cola and chewing gum, Somehow these products get out. The private sector knows how to get their products out to the furthest corners of the world. And so that seems to me like a logical connection, right? How do we learn from them and leverage their supply chains?
No, absolutely. I think, you have, as you said, you've got a lot of big players who can reach the most remote area and make money out of it.
Yeah.
So how do we use that same knowledge for delivering some of the products we know that will improve health and nutrition, for example, or include access to affordable food products? And that really involves changing the mindset a bit around development aid.
Right.
And that's one of the discussions we're having here is that, it just can't be thinking of government as the main avenue for development cooperation anymore. And that's where most of bilateral aid still goes to. But it's really trying to shift that paradigm to start to say, what are some of these new partnership models? What are some of these new frameworks that crowd in small social businesses, that crowd in small, medium players, bring civil society into the equation, into new arrangements? And that's really where we see the solution. I mean, if we have to get to scale, and that's to reach those big numbers,
right,
we need these new models. And it's all about new delivery models that can either do everything from the research to develop products to create demand. And that's really where I think the new frameworks are coming. Certainly for hunger and malnutrition, the private sector is going to be, to a large extent, where a lot of the new investment is going to come. And so what is that? What are those incentives that need to be in place to crowd the private sector in? What are those models that deal with the fact that poor people are badly served in most of the countries that we're trying to reach with development assistance? The rich are very well served.
Yeah.
You can find every product that you can find here, but the poor don't have access to those products. And certainly, what are the new models that somebody earning $2, $3 a day can have access to the right kind of products? Or what are the new models that for those people who are outside the market who can be brought in a more sustainable way? In some places we're looking at cross-subsidy models. Maybe the rich pay a premium price for the product and the same product may get given away through a clinic and sold to poor people who have some income power. And together you get a model that works. And those are the kind of things that GAIN is focusing quite a lot on.
That's work in the pharmaceutical industry, right? Where rich
That's right.
countries are paying a much higher rate for some
Exactly.
medicines that are given away free in some of the poorest parts of the world.
Absolutely. And I think we haven't seen in agriculture, food, and nutrition a lot of those new models and innovations that we have seen in the pharmaceutical and the other global health areas. So we've got, you've got new model, you have differential pricing agreements, but you also have big, funding vehicles that actually pick up some of the risk to get into these new areas, and we haven't seen those yet, and that's sort of what we need to start.
That's the next transition.
That's the next
transition. It is a new model, a new way of thinking, even, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot of traditional development actors who think about funding governments or funding projects. This is really a separate thing. It's not a project. It's not a pilot. It's really building businesses, right?
That's right. It's building business and new partnership arrangements, and it also is looking at how do you get enough of a return on investment to make it attractive for businesses to go into this, whether it's Coke or Pepsi or Unilever, or whether it's a small entrepreneur in Ghana. How do you make it attractive to get them engaged and to use all of their core business? And here we're not talking about corporate social responsibility. We're really talking
foundation.
No, that's good. It's helpful.
Right.
But we're really talking about how do we move the core business into these, and I think that's the future for sure.
I think you're right. I think it's an exciting time. There's so many companies that are converging in their thinking with what the development sector is thinking, that they need to serve these markets, right? It's big business opportunity there.
No, absolutely. And so I think what we have before us, we need, donors like the European Commission to start to create some of the frameworks to make this happen. We need to actually start to look at how do we bring this in as a pillar of development aid, not as a sideshow.
Right.
And the other part of it is how do you get the private sector to actually really commit? We don't, because a lot of players they're flirting with the issue,
Sure.
but they're not really. A lot of them are on the sidelines still, and so how do you push them into this in a big way, and so that there is a value proposition for them, that they can see a business model, and I think that's where the future of development cooperation is going to go.
I think you're right. Well, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this, and good luck with everything you're doing again.
Thank you.